أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى أصحابه المنتجبين وعلى جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين. قال الله تعالى في القرآن الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. وقال النبي حبيبنا المصطفى صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى أهل بيته وأصحابه: خير ما يخلف الرجل من بعده ثلاث: ولد صالح يدعو له، وصدقة تجري يبلغه أجرها، وعلم يعمل به من بعده، أو كما قال صدقت يا رسول الله. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, all praise is due to our Creator, our Cherisher, our Nourisher and our Sustainer. We bear witness there's none worthy of worship but Allah. We bear witness that we believe in all the prophets who came in the great line of divine, and we bear witness that Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, is the final of all the emissaries of Allah. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, I greet you with the Islamic universal greeting of peace on this auspicious hour of Jum'ah, in this beautiful house of Allah and Masjid al-Quds, in this most beautiful city in the world. We say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Today, 21st September, is a public holiday in our country. It is National Heritage Day, a day on which South Africans celebrate the nation's diversity and its legacy, its cultural legacy and historical legacy and political legacy. But it does so acknowledging its diversity in the spirit of Ubuntu, which means humanity to others. And this concept of Ubuntu is founded and grounded in the universal golden rule common to all faith traditions of loving for others what you love for yourself. And it is reflected in the Quranic spirit of ihsan, wa ahsinu inna Allah yuhibbul muhsinin, doing good, for surely Allah loves those who do good. And it is a universal principle captured in the words of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as documented in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, where the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لا يبلغ عبد حقيقة الإيمان حتى يحب للناس ما يحب لنفسه من الخير. The servant of Allah will never reach the reality of faith. The servant of Allah will never reach the reality of faith until he loves for others the good things which he loves for himself. But the question on the heritage and legacy, we may ask, what exactly is heritage? Heritage is what a community, a nation, or a people inherit from its past generations and wishes to continue, to transmit, to pass on to future generations. And heritage is the perpetuation of the collection of our positive legacies that we have accumulated over a period of time. Yes, we are South Africans, and proudly so. And we as South Africans share in the national heritage because we are part of a global ummah, but part of a local nation as well. But as part of that international ummah, we also have a global heritage. We are where we are as a consequence of the past, and we can only be where we need to be if we learn from the past in order to prepare and lay the foundation for a better tomorrow. Do not forget, irrespective of whether you are the dominant community in any society or you're a minority, you are part of that community, and the future that dictates that community impacts on everyone that is to come. So we are victims somewhat or results of the past, we are where we are because of the past, but also we also need to look at where we need to be. And this directly impacts on the legacy and the culture and the heritage that we leave behind. It is with this in mind that I want to look at the beginning of what is the foundation of Islam here and the transmission of that legacy of Islam that came here, and people who reflected that legacy. And these models of excellence whose legacy we need to perpetuate as part of our heritage for the future. When we look at the Ummah here in South Africa, we reflect on our past generations. And we look right at the beginning, Sheikh Yusuf, and we find noble examples, exemplary people, outstanding figures like Tuan Qadi Abdul Salam, rahmatullahi alayh. You see, it's very important to know where we started off and to see if we have progressed. You see, today, this week, is 52 years since the martyrdom of Imam Abdullah Haron, who was one of our own. He was the leader of the ulama council here. He was an Imam. And if you gauge where he was 52 years ago, it seems that we are 52 years behind where he was 52 years ago. In many ways, we are 52 years behind what he was 52 years ago. And this is not a heritage you leave behind. This is going backward. Heritage is the legacy that you build. You see, Rasulullah came, then people came after him. Then they built on the legacy. They gave civilization to the world, part of the Islamic legacy, part of the Islamic heritage. We speak of those golden age. What are we leaving behind? And in what age are we living right now? So we begin right at the beginning. Not that as we settled ourselves, right at the beginning. When people came here incarcerated as political prisoners, who had no say, who had no rights, who could not pray in Jama'ah, who were killed for praying Jum'ah Salah, who could be banished for teaching the deen. And that is why on Thursday evenings they got together and made some adhkar, and through that means, in the singing of songs and so on, transmitted the knowledge that they had of the deen. And today, alhamdulillah, by that bid'ah, today we are still Muslim. Because many people are disjointed from the legacy, who are not able to connect how we have come to where we are. And that is why they disconnect themselves from the past, as if the people of the past did not know better. Because we can sit and intellectually analyze in our offices after we have a couple of degrees at Western universities to analyze, well, they did what they did, but it should be like this actually. You have to have the lived experience of people in order to understand what culture, what legacy, and what heritage is. So when you look at the very beginning, let's start right at the beginning. Then we must gauge the kinds of imams or sheikhs or leaders or political freedom fighters that we have. How far are we in measure to the original people who came enchained, enslaved? Tuan Qadi Abdul Salam, a man who spent 2 stints, twice, in prison on Robben Island, long before Robben Island was a political prisoner for Sobukwe and Mandela and people like that. Long before that. It was even a leper colony in between. Long before anybody knew of Robben Island, he served 2 stints as a political prisoner on Robben Island. A political exile, a revolutionary prisoner of conscience. A man who wrote the Quran from memory while incarcerated. He composed classical texts, the effects of which had an impact on how even the Afrikaans language was written initially in the Arabic script. He composed classical texts that kept the knowledge of our faith alive and that educated our people for over 100 years. He is a man who established the first non-racial school in the country. Not Muslim school, it happened to be a school where Muslims were also participating and Islam was taught, but he opened the first non-racial school in the land. He was involved in the establishment of the first masjid in our land at the southern tip of Africa, and served as the Imam of the Awwal Masjid, which is still operational today in the Buka, and the Quran which he wrote from memory is still preserved and can be viewed in that masjid today. So Tuan Guru, our origin and where we started off. We talk about heritage and transmission, legacy. Hafiz al-Quran, alim, muhajir who left his land, a mujahid, revolutionary fighter for justice, an imam, a leader, a da'i, a propagator of Islam, a muallim, a teacher. And he left a legacy. The Rasul said, when you die, everything comes to an end. But what you leave behind, you leave family or relatives who pray for you, remember the good things, and they pray for your good. Or whatever you may have planted or done or charity you've given, anything that impacts and positively benefits people after your death, or even any form of knowledge or book or teaching or skill. It doesn't have to be a degree. It can be a simple skill that you teach someone and he earns a living from it, he or she. They earn halal from it. Allah will reward you because the halal earning is from a skill you taught. That benefits you even after your death. So, in our times, we had Imam Abdullah Haron, Hafiz al-Quran, alim, mujahid, revolutionary fighter for justice, imam, leader of the masjid, also da'i, a propagator of Islam. Up till now we are uncomfortable going into the townships. Some of us. He went there 52 years ago. From DC they knew him as the person. And not only that, he was also a muallim, a teacher, who gave opportunity to the young people, to ladies and men and youth, to be able to develop. And also, eventually, slightly more than Tuan Guru in this case, he also died a shaheed, a martyr. A martyr for justice and for freedom for the oppressed people of the land, not only for the Muslims, though he fought on the basis of Islam. You see, these are people who imbibed ihsan, whatever you want to call them, whatever terminology you want to use, whether you say Ubuntu or whatever you want to say, he reflected that Ubuntu. Those who gave their lives for the well-being and the rights of others. من عاش لنفسه عاش صغيرا ومات صغيرا ونسيه الناس ومن عاش لغيره عاش كبيرا ومات كبيرا وذكره الناس. As the Arabic saying, whoever lives for themselves, they live a small life. They may become rich and famous. They live a small life. They die a small death, and people soon forget them. And then there are those who live for others. They live a big life. They die, and they are remembered forever by the people. You see? Ihsan. Reminds me of an incident. The story of the sole male survivor of the Prophet's family at Karbala, Imam Zainul Abidin al-Sajjad. Sole survivor among the male. Great-grandson of the Prophet. Great-grandson of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Later in life, he was known for his generosity, of course, for his piety and righteousness. That's why as-Sajjad, the one was constantly in sujood. But also generosity. And he took care of the needs of the pilgrims. He went out of his way to care for the pilgrims. On an occasion, an old man from Iraq, who had distinctive features, you remember that face. Distinctive feature. Observe the generosity and service of this man. And he knew this Zainul Abidin. And he said to him, you treat us so well when we killed your family years ago. You treat us so well. You see, this is legacy you leave behind, and that's the heritage you build on. The culture you build on. The culture of generosity, of love, of compassion. He said, yes, that time when we came at Karbala, we were your guests. And that's how you hosted us. They killed the family, they ran horses over the family of the Prophet. Things that we try not to remember today anymore. Cowards amongst us. Don't want to even remember the memory of Imam Hussein. Cowards that we are. It's nothing to do with madhab. We are cowards. And the same cowards will forget Imam Haron too. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. So, he said, yes, that time we came to Karbala, we were your guests and you were our host. And you treated us the way you treated us. Now you have come to Kaaba. You have come to the house of Allah. You are the guest of Allah. You are our guest. And this is how the family of the Prophet treat their guests. You see? One progeny of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam survived, and we still remember the Ahlul Bayt. Yazid had 22 children. None of us bothered to remember them. Though some of the progeny may be sitting on the thrones of Muslim lands, Allah knows best. But people like Hussein that time, people like Tuan Guru in our legacy, in our history in this country, like Imam Haron in our times, they imbibed ihsan and reflected Ubuntu, who gave their lives for the well-being and the rights of others. People like these are never defeated. They are never conquered, whether we bother to remember them or not. Our memory doesn't keep them alive. Their legacy keeps them alive. The oppressed destroyed their bodies, but their mission is still alive. They silenced their voices, but their message continues to inspire. They buried their remains, but their memories still live on in our hearts. They perpetuated the spirit of ihsan, and they manifested the goodness. Remembering, Allah says in Surah Yasin, Allah says, نَكْتُبْ مَا قَدَّمُوا وَآثَارَهُمْ وَكُلَّ شَيْءٍ أَحْصَيْنَاهُ فِي إِمَامٍ مُبِينٍ. We are recording everything that people are doing. We will revive. إِنَّا نَحْنُ نُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى. You'll be revived on the Day of Judgment to answer for things and to be shown your record. وَنَكْتُبُ مَا قَدَّمُوا وَآثَارَهُمْ. And as you live, we are recording everything that people have sent forth for the future. Ittaqullah, as Allah says, وَلْتَنْظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ. Be carefully conscious of what you are sending forth for the future in this world, for the next generation, and for the hereafter after your death. Ittaqullah, وَلْتَنْظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ. Ghad means tomorrow. It can mean tomorrow in this world, the future, next generation. It can also mean the hereafter, and it can mean both according to most of the ulama. We document sending whatever you have sent ahead and all that you leave behind. آثارهم, the footsteps we have created, what you leave behind. وَكُلَّ شَيْءٍ أَحْصَيْنَاهُ فِي إِمَامٍ مُبِينٍ. And all of these things, this account of everything is kept in a clear record. So we must hearken and give respectful attention to how we look and how we engage the future. When we forget our noble ones, we begin drifting away from our moral compass and from our spiritual roots. And without moral direction, don't let people come and talk about bid'ah and all these things. People have never been involved in any struggle. To come to try define what bid'ah is as if we don't know, as if Sheikh Saleh Abadi did not know, as if Tuan Guru did not know. They taught us Islam, people. We are learning where things we can learn online. We become Maulanas online now. You don't need to go anywhere else. It doesn't mean we have the quality of knowledge and the depth of spirituality that they had. Book knowledge had. Have you forgotten Iblis? He did not disobey Allah because he was stupid. He was rational. I am better than him. خَلَقْتَنِي مِن نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِن طِينٍ. He wasn't an idiot. He was arrogant, yes. His knowledge made him arrogant. But he wasn't arguing on a basis which has no foundation. خَلَقْتَنِي مِن نَارٍ أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّنْ. I'm better than Adam. خَلَقْتَنِي. He was giving logic, reasoning. He just didn't say, no, I don't obey you. He gave a reasoning why he did it. خَلَقْتَنِي مِن نَارٍ. You might create me from fire. وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِن طِينٍ. You created him from dust. Very careful. When we forget our noble ones, we begin drifting away from our moral compass and our spiritual roots. And without moral direction and spiritual foundation, we have no base to grow on and no way to reap the fruits of our legacies, the legacies of our heroes. We thus have to arm our people with information based on historical facts, to stand up against injustice and corruption, just like Tuan Guru did, just like Imam Abdullah Haron did, to learn from mistakes and to build on our successes, and have the courage of conviction and confidence to shape the present in order to build a better future. I've said it before. We proudly revolted against the dehumanizing apartheid regime early in our times. It would be a sad indictment if our children have to revolt against us someday for the corruption that we are allowing to happen in our time. Let us never forget that we do not so much inherit the legacy from our parents as much as we borrow the future from our children. Because what we do, what we promote, what we allow, that's what they will inherit. That's what they will get. And if we mess up things, if you look at global warming right now, the way we are destroying the environment, there can be perhaps there's no return. Children will be born deformed. There will be not enough water. There will be droughts in places there were never droughts before. There will be storms in places there were never storms before. We've upset the balance of nature. You can't reverse it. And that's what we leave behind. We can't say, well, we were bad people. I used to steal, I'm stopping stealing. That's one thing. On the global scale, we are part of it. We are allowing it to happen. So be very cautious. Politically, what's the legacy we leave behind? Many of our people died. Imam Abdullah Haron died. This is a political lecture I'm giving here. It's people who gave their lives as Muslims. Tuan Guru had to leave his country. Sheikh Yusuf was a prince in his land, exiled to Sri Lanka, and then he was brought here. People who gave up for deen, for justice, fighting against imperialism and colonialism 300 years ago. And we are their progeny. We are here because of them. None of us would have been here if it wasn't for them. And why were they here? They were political exiles, victims of oppression, fighters for justice, people of faith, people of conscience, of deep spirituality. Never forget that. So, our legacy of struggle in this country is marred at the moment, is damaged by an overwhelming crime and corruption. We have struggled for the upliftment of our people. If some people have struggled to enrich themselves, as we see many people in government right now, enrich themselves at the expense of the citizens of the land, then you are as much an enemy of the oppressed as the racist regime in the past. At least they fought in their racism to look after the well-being of their own people at the expense of us. You are people we have chosen, and you do it only for yourself, not even for your people. So we are being robbed both ways today. There are thieves who rob us because crime and corruption is so rife. We are robbed in our homes by thieves, and then there are those who rob us through parliament. The one choose to rob us, and the other people rob us after we have chosen them. Religiously, I want to conclude with this. Imam Abdullah Haron connected with all segments of society, reached out to all people irrespective of color, of gender, of age or creed. His primary focus was on the empowering of youth, his concern for the well-being of society, his ability to reconcile his anti-apartheid activism with his duties as an imam of a masjid at Stekhman Road, his capacity to break down racial barriers locally and internationally, his efforts at securing aid for the families of those who were in need at a time when you couldn't even mention their names, his unique grace of creating interfaith connection. We're still debating, can you have interfaith discussion after 52 years the man died? Little wonder, when he passed away, for the first time in the history of St. Paul's Cathedral, a commemoration event was held for a non-Muslim, for Imam Abdullah Haron from our town in the Cathedral of London. 6th October 1969. Reverend Canon Collins was the one who did it for him. Locally, when he died, an inquest, a demand for an inquest. A person by the name of Reverend Bernard Rankmore. Bernard Rankmore fasted 67 days. At that time we lived in the Bukhab. My uncle is here today as well. We lived that time in the Bukhab when this happened. 67 days he fasted, demanding an inquest into the killing of Imam. And he fasted there for 67 days. Today we still, is it bid'ah to go to the place? A kafir went in there out of conscience, cared about an Imam of ours. And he fasted for 67 days, and we're still busy with our fatwa. He was the first cleric, the first person of any religion, who was a religious personality, first cleric of religion to die in the custody under apartheid regime. No priest, imam, sheikh, rabbi died before him or was killed before him, in prison, except him. He was the first one. When Imam Haron died, as I mentioned, people remembered him in the cathedral in London, and other people remembered him worldwide. Yet, what is our legacy? Look at our fatwa. Look at our senior ulama, what they're busy with. Who among us is kafir? We're still busy with madhab issues. Can the Hanafi pray Shafi, witr behind? Must we make separate Jamaat? Are the Shias Muslims? Are the Barelvis Kafir? Are the Deobandis proper Imam? Can you pray behind the Imam of the Haron? They are Wahhabis. If you are Tablighi, are you pro Tariq Jamil or anti-Tariq Jamil? This is where we are 52 years after Imam Harun died. It's a shame on us, all of us. Each and every one of us. Each and every one, if we are busy with this kind of fatwa, we should have been leading the people in bringing solutions. That's what Islam came for. Locally and globally. Look at our global ummah. Look at our leadership. Look at who they're siding with. Look at our Palestinian people left forlorn. Look at Kashmir. What's happening? We protesting here, raising money here. You think the leaders of ours care? These people who pay some of our religious leaders their salaries. Something is wrong, people. I'm asking, what will our heritage be? If my great-grandchild someday asks my grandson, may Allah grant me, and says, oh, mashallah, your father was Imam, you speak very nice there, yes? So what did he do like what Imam Harun did? No, Imam Harun was like Twanguru. Oh, very good. So he saw Imam Harun. What did he do like Imam Harun? What are we going to say? Other people value us. Other people celebrate the lives of Imam Harun, and we're busy. If you celebrate Hussein, it's a Shia thing. Harun is a political thing. This is how we become separated from origins, forgetting that Twanguru came here as a political exile. We have to reassess, make critical muhasabah, critical self-evaluation. Because on Heritage Day, I want to ask ourselves, what collective legacy are we leaving behind? أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.